All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 700 Pelham Road Podcast, your one stop shop for all things Jack State sports. I am Caleb Williams, alongside my co-host Jalen Cooper. Jalen, how you doing today?
I am doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Just chilling here. Probably gonna go get some coffee after we finish up. What about you?
Man, I might do the same. We had a weekend with the boys, um,
We sure did. We sure did.
and it was a weekend. And so now we're having a rally to actually be productive.
Yeah, you're right about that one.
But we are here nonetheless. Man, it was a big week for football.
Yeah, we had some pretty big games. Um, we had Auburn and their Voodoo Stadium down there, giving it to UGA. Honestly, should have came away with the win, but compared to how they had been performing all season, for them to make that game that close, that was huge in and of itself. Um, so yeah, that the Colorado game,
Mm-hmm.
Duke Notre Dame, it was a very exciting weekend for college football.
Yeah, a lot of good games. Colorado USC started out about how we thought it would, and then Colorado stormed back in about the last 20 minutes. Ole Miss USC might be the highest scoring game of the year. Um, it probably will stay that way.
Yeah, talk about wet napkin defense, but firepower offense.
Yeah, neither of those defense could stop a slug on 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 a ventilator, but
I feel like that's one thing Lane Kiffin has been known for at Ole Miss, especially though. His offenses have always been known to just light you up for 50, 60 points. But, if you have a competent enough offense, you can go right back at him and put up 50, 60, and you're looking at a shootout.
yeah, you got to give credit to LSU for being willing to stay in a shootout. Um, they've historically been a team that wants to play a little more defense. Um, but when your defense is as bad as theirs is, and you're facing a team that also has a defense that bad, you just got to lock in and score. Um, I'll tell you what, they gave us an entertaining game. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing, one thing that we have seen that probably will continue is Jaden Daniels just getting absolutely lit up. He is a quarterback that does not like to go down. He does not like to go out of bounds. He wants every single inch. And these SEC boys, they're making him pay for every single yard he's getting.
yeah, one of these hits is going to get to him eventually. I'll say that. I mean, he's a baller. He's mobile. He can throw. I mean, he's everything you want in a QB. He needs to learn to slide every now and then.
I'm sure somebody is in Brian Kelly's ear right now, telling this man, get get Jane Daniels to slide or get out of bounds by any means possible. Because you want to be in the hunt for the SEC championship game. You want to be in the playoff hunt, but if you are limping there, you are not nearly as effective.
Yeah. Um, um, I'll tell you what. He's got he's got Auburn's defense in 2 weeks, and they're not Ole Miss's defense. That's for sure.
No,
Um,
he's got
he,
Auburn's defense. He has to go through Bama's defense. Like what's been working on some of these, weaker SEC West and some of the SEC East teams, it's just not going to work whenever he has to play Auburn, Bama, UGA, etc.
Yeah, I think if LSU ends up winning the West, which is still possible, I mean they only have one conference loss. I think the issue you're going to see, and we saw it this week, is what happens when Georgia starts to tee off on them.
Yeah, that's a big thing. They're just the way the way they play right now as it sits, unless they can get their defense to figure something out. I just don't know how they fare, with the rest of their SEC schedule. I'm not even super confident they can, win out and get to the SEC championship game, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. Um, I
I
guess we
mean,
should go.
speaking of SEC, we flip over to the East.
Hmm.
Kentucky Georgia is a big game to look for, especially after seeing Georgia's lackluster performance against Auburn. I mean, they did what they had to do when they needed to, but it was not a pretty game for them by any means.
No, I wouldn't. I'm not going to come right out and say Kentucky beats Georgia this week, though it certainly is very possible. Um, I do see it being another close game, though. I mean, just we saw it against South Carolina, we saw it against UAB, we saw it really most of the year. Georgia has started really slow, um, and they've played down to their opponent.
Yeah,
But here's the issue now: is what happens when you play down to an opponent that's also a top 25 team.
yeah, exactly. I think this is the week where I think this is the make or break week for Georgia. Either they're going to lose a really close one, or they're going to, go back home. That's a huge advantage. They have home cooking, and they're coming off of, I wouldn't say an embarrassing win, but it's definitely not a win to be proud of. Um, and so either they're going to lose very close, or they're going to come back with a vengeance and hang 60 on Kentucky out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'll say this about Kentucky: Devin Leary is one big game away from Kentucky turning into a real contender in the SEC. Um, I um, he was a great player at NC State. He just had a lot of injury issues. Um, Now he hasn't been as good here, and part of that is one, the defenses are a little bit better. Two, he doesn't really have the weapons that he had at NC State. He doesn't have um, Wandale Moore anymore. Um, he doesn't have Chris Rodriguez anymore either. I don't think.
No, he's in the
Um,
league. Chris
yeah,
is
so
a Washington Commander now.
yeah, it's like all those guys that were playing with Will Levis who were really good. And what I said Wandale Moore, I meant Wandale Robinson. Um, but like he just doesn't have the weapons that he needs really to attack, and yet they're still making plays.
Yeah, to still be 5-0, with a somewhat depleted offense around compared, like you said, compared to years past, very huge, and that's the kind of guy you got to be, wary of, especially with UGA, like you said, having the slow starts they've been having, their defense not being the same defense we saw the past two seasons. So that's definitely what some people would call a trap game for them. Um, because you're not used to going into Kentucky week being seriously worried about Kentucky, but here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going to be a good game, and it'll probably be the hoping it'll be the 2:30 CBS game, so that we have a little time to get ready for it, and then a little time after to react to it.
I think that one actually, I think they got them at night. I think it's a night game in Athens.
Oh man, that'll be an atmosphere.
Oh yeah, 100%. Um, but yeah, we had an exciting weekend of college football, but we also had a very exciting midweek of college football. Um, our very own Conference USA, we got to start the midweek slate with a couple of good games.
Sure did. One in particular that I think we all have a little vested interest in. Um, JSU Gamecocks head on the road to Texas, um, and we'll get into it. But probably one of the most exciting finishes that I have seen, um, really since I think the 2021 season. Um, we didn't really have a lot of like super close games last year. Um, and I mean, this one we had an overtime game where we were down three scores and
Yeah,
came all the way back.
yeah. That I definitely think that was a even from an outsider's perspective, a lot of other CUSA fans and just college football fans in general really seem to enjoy that game. I saw a lot of if you're not on ESPNU right now, you're missing out. So yeah, I was happy we were able to have a marquee game, especially because the other game um, going on at the same time was not as fun or exciting. Um, I think preseason conference champion favorite Western Kentucky. NTSU came into town and it was never close. It was 23-3 at halftime, and then the final score was 31-10. Um, which is kind of what you expect. MTSU has not had a great season so far, um, and Western Kentucky, although they're 3-2, they have still very much looked the part of a conference championship contender.
Yeah. I, I'll say this though, and I'll have to apologize if it's taking me a few seconds to respond. I've been getting a lot of texts from work, about some stuff that happened last week, and so I'm having to respond to that. But um, I'll say this: we've got three games coming up that's going to really decide how this conference goes. Um, and I know we're about to get into kind of really what went down, in Texas, but just to sum and really, I mean, if we have to sum it up into one sentence before we get into it, the way that we played in the second half, the way we responded to such a slow start, that's why I think we have a chance to quote unquote win the conference.
Oh
Um,
yeah, 100%.
um, and I don't. That probably wasn't even the answer to what you said. Um, just because I was having to respond to a text, I didn't hear it. So hopefully, I don't sound too disjointed.
No,
But
no, you're good.
um, hopefully, that thing that just happened is taken care of now, so I can kind of lock in. Um,
But I mean, yeah, the other conference game was a Friday night game. Louisiana Tech went to El Paso, took care of business there, 24-10 or 24-10. Um,
yep.
so they're sitting along with us and Liberty as the um, somewhat tied at the top of the conference leaderboard. All three of us are at 2-0. Western Kentucky's at 1-0, and the rest of our conference mates have yet to get a conference win. Um, so, like you said, going into these next 3 weeks, we can be the James Madison of CUSA. We can come up in here and we pull off some upsets. We could quote unquote win the conference, even though we can't.
Yeah, I mean, um, two of our next three games. Well, actually, all three of our next three games are against teams that are in the top six of the conference. Now, MTSU has kind of fallen flat this year. It hasn't been a good start to the season. Um, but Western Kentucky, they're 3-2, and they've only played one conference game. So that kind of tells you what their schedule's been like. Of course, Liberty 4-0. They're probably going to be 4-0 just about every year they play,
Yeah.
as long as they aren't playing any big teams.
Yeah. And outside of us, Liberty's prediction to win their games moving forward, I think outside of us, they don't have a percentage lower than like 65%. So the chance of Liberty ending the season 12-0 is fairly high.
Yeah, it's very likely. I mean, it, now the beauty of that game is they're coming from Virginia, on a Tuesday night, um, down to Jacksonville. Um, so the hope is that they'll be way more out of rhythm than we are, because at least we'll be, our guys will get to sleep in their normal beds, kind of go through their normal, Jacksonville routine.
Yeah,
Um, Whereas, they're going to have to be on the road in the middle of the week, and so you hope that kind of what happened to us with heading over to Huntsville, Texas, hope happens to them, or you get a slow start just from not responding to the travel well.
yeah. But I mean, that's a few weeks from now. So we gotta get past MTSU,
Yep, sure
which
do.
we'll get into after we talk about last week's game. But overall, the conference is looking pretty strong. The only thing I hate about that is right now it's looking like there's enough teams that are going to be bowl eligible to at least fill out our conference contractual obligations, which is nice because you want a strong conference, but also I'm a little selfish and I want us to walk in and just walk into a bowl game and shut everybody up.
Yeah, I would greatly prefer to be able to, kind of announce ourselves and say, hey, we might have been FCS for the last infinity years, but a lot like James Madison, where you come in and say, hey, we've got talent. We just need a chance. I really would love to see that we can continue doing that.
Yeah, I'm hoping some of the other G5 teams kind of fall off a little bit and there's a bowl spot open somewhere. Um, at this point, not super picky. I would just love to be able to say, hey, we walked in, year two of our transition, but first year with the FBS schedule and walked right into a bowl game.
Yeah, yeah, no question. It's a hard ask, but I mean, we put ourselves in position where we're 2 wins away from being bowl eligible, and I can see 3 or 4 wins left on the schedule.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I see a potential in the schedule where we can legitimately walk out at 8-4, and I can see where some things fall our way and we walk out 9-3. Um,
yeah,
it really just depends on how we handle business. Mainly these next 3 weeks,
hmm
MTSU, Liberty, Western Kentucky. Um, yeah, we can walk out of here 8-4, 9-3, and be way above all of our expectations coming into the season. And honestly, just giving Liberty and Western Kentucky, two of our strongest conference mates, something to look at and be like, okay, maybe JSU was a good addition to the conference. Maybe they do help you know our conference gain a little bit of respect after they lost what 6 or 7 teams last year. So hopefully we can go in, put up some good performances, walk away with a good record, and just overall help grow the strength of our conference.
yeah, absolutely. You all. I'm not really quite as loyal to certain conferences as some people would be, but you do want your conference to be good enough that your schedule, your strength of schedule isn't last in the FBS.
Yeah, because
Um,
right now we're sitting at like I think we have like 6 of the 7 easiest schedules according to strength of record or whatever. So you want to build up your conference in the sense that when it comes time for the 12 team playoff and they're looking for the highest ranked group of 5 champion, you want us to actually be able to have some respect and not just be like, yeah, well, you're playing in obviously the weakest conference out of all of them, so why should we even look at you?
yeah, absolutely. But um, the hope is that you take care of business, and then you don't need strength of schedule to have have any influence. You hope you can be 7-5, 8-4, and not have to feel like you're having to justify to anyone, um, that you belong. I think we go 8-4 year one. I think people know that we have a chance to really be a power in this conference for a
Oh
few
yeah,
years.
for sure, for sure. And especially if it was 8-4, year one, still running mainly off of FCS level recruits, that would be huge because one, when Rich Rod and the boys, hit the recruiting trail, they can look at some of these 3 and 4 star guys that are looking at, possibly sitting the bench at some of these higher G5, lower P5 schools and say, hey, you can come here and really put in the work, and you might see the field right away if you're, dedicated enough and willing to show that you got it. And we're not, some schools laugh at. We came in and went 8-4 right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, with that, I guess we should probably get into it, kind of talking about this last game. Um, um, going into Huntsville, I think we all kind of overlooked Sam Houston's ability to perform at home. Um, in part just because of who they played. They'd faced off against a lot of really good teams. Um, they played BYU. Um, they played Air Force. Um, the teams they played were very, very good teams with really, really good football coaches. Um, and so I'll go on the record and say I was wrong. This is a team that still can put some points up, and they can still hang around with teams. Um, I'll go on record and say I was wrong.
Yeah, yeah, no, same here. I think a lot of other JSU fans can say the same. Um, I'm not going to say the team was, looking past Sam Houston. I think a lot of fans were for sure. Um, but it was definitely a shock for us. Going in and seeing them with their record, and then we go into the game and almost immediately go down. Let's see what we were down 21 or we started off pretty good, but then we were down 21-7 going into the half, and it was not looking pretty whatsoever.
Yeah. And a lot of it started with, um, I think in part due to how how many struggles Sam Houston has had on offense. They did a lot of different things. This last week they did a lot of wildcat stuff, a lot of QB run, and their first touchdown really was a QB run RPO with with a running back, leaking into the secondary, and no one covered him. Um,
Yeah,
just a wide open throw.
yeah, I think them kind of experimenting on offense caught us off guard on defense because it just seemed like there were a lot of simple missed assignments or simple miscommunication. And I say simple because obviously it looks like whatever it was, they figured it out, cleared it up, and in the second half. So I think they just came out with something different than what they had been showing on tape on film, um, which was really big for them because we just did not look like we had any sort of clue or any sort of answer for anything at all after they got rolling there in the first half.
Yeah, and you have to give credit to their defense too, because I'm not saying that Logan was playing poorly, but he definitely was not responding well at first. To the weekday game, to the travel. I mean, and the offense really as a whole, outside of Malik Jackson, um, popping a few big runs. We really didn't have any offense to speak of in the first half. Um,
Yeah, in the first half, he picked up what 80 yards or 85 yards on that first drive alone. Um, and then after that, our offense kind of went dormant for the rest of the half. I don't know if we even crossed 150 total yards in the first half at all.
I don't think we did. I mean, most of our yards really were one drive, um, and and again, that one drive was Malik Jackson with two big runs, and really both the same play, just a simple zone read play, um, and Logan gave it to him, um, and he popped two big runs, and that was, I mean, that was it. But no, the rest of the first half, we didn't have any offense. Really didn't have any success defensively. And it's I think we both said it already. It wasn't so much that we were playing poorly, but they were doing a lot of things differently that we have not seen. I think even on tape, that it's stuff that they have not been doing and stuff that Casey Keeler as a coach has never really done. Um, but I mean, it's a long year. They've got 8 games left, and they needed to find a way to get some rhythm, and they found it in the first half.
Yeah. Um, whatever had been plaguing them, I don't know if it was, like you said, simply the level of competition they had been playing against, or um, if it was just a matter of trying to find something that would stick. um, they figured it out, and I don't know if it's something that they will just kind of stay with and work out the kinks, or if they'll add or subtract, because whether it was our defense or whether they just kind of fizzled out their second half. This game was truly a tale of two halves, um, where they won the first half 21-7, and then we turned around and won the second half 21-7. Um, it just seemed like whatever was working for them the first half, it just kind of fell apart in the second half. But like I said, you got to give credit to our defense, because they also went into that locker room and they were like, okay, this is what they're giving us. Even though we may have seen, XYZ, they're giving us ABC. And they were able to flip the switch real quick.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the big things that, and we've talked about it before, is we have a coach who knows how to make adjustments at the FBS level. Um, you go into the locker room at half and say, "Hey, look, we'll be honest, we're getting gashed offensively. We're turning the ball over. We're just being sloppy all over the place. Here's what we've got to do." Um, you know, yeah, I'm sure there were some other things said in the locker room that I probably can't say on this podcast, but um, that was probably the gist of the messages. Look, we've got to strap in if we want to win. And hey, second half they strapped in, especially defensively.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't give up a touchdown until that last drive, which came off of a fumble inside of our own 30. Like it's not like they drove the length of the field on us. We got strip sacked inside the 30, and they scored on 4th and 1 after we stood them up 3 times. Um, so again, like second half, really they didn't do anything offensively. It was
Yeah.
one short like 25-yard drive that they scored on, and that was it.
Yeah. And whereas they weren't really doing much offensively, I think Logan Smothers finally settled in and found whatever groove he needed. Um, which is what I've been saying the whole time. I think he just needs the time, especially, he wasn't here for the spring. He came in the summer, which is a huge disadvantage when you're the quarterback and, you have to learn the whole playbook. So I've said for the longest, if we're going to play him, he needs to have the time to work through whatever's going on and kind of settle down. That's why, I wasn't a fan. I know you weren't a fan. I know a lot of people weren't a fan of the random, two Zion web drives, um, because we all believe, especially with them deeming Smothers the starter, he just needed time to work through it and calm himself down. Now, maybe that was the point of the two Zion web drives, but I still just didn't like it.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it, and again, it more goes to if you're gonna if you're looking to have one guy as the starter, you have to let that guy play out his struggles. Um, because if he's shown that hey you're struggling and we're going to take you out, then he's going to play scared. He's going to play tight, right? But if you say hey we trust you, we know that even if you make mistakes and you're struggling that you can get it back together. He's going to go out and play loose, and he's going to start to play well. And when you're a guy who's as talented as Logan Smothers, former four-star recruit, the talent is in there. That's it's just a matter of getting him really a few easy throws. And I'll go on record and say this: I don't think we did a good job of getting him any easy completions in the first half. But in the second half, I don't know what it was. The game plan completely changed. They went more to the short passing game to set up the deep ball instead of trying to force the issue downfield. And I mean, it worked. It
Yeah,
worked. I think, what did he start? I think our quarterback started what, one for their first 12.
one for their first 15 or 16 actually.
Okay, yeah. So, and then from there, Logan finished 16 of 28. So that kind of tells you that he got on a heater in the second half. And I think it was just all, it was all game plan. It's all, simplifying it, repetitively doing what he's good at.
Yeah, and like you said, I think them finally going to the short game and then allowing that to translate into the deep balls is what did it. When we have players like Sean Brown, Michael Petway, Sterling Galvan, we can win a lot of these mismatches, in the slot against linebackers. We can get a lot of these, 10, 15 yard middle of the field 10, 15 yard out routes. We can get a lot of these like we saw against Sam Houston. And then from there, that will translate to the safeties pulling up, the corners playing a little tighter. Sterling Galvan and Michael Petway have that breakaway speed. And, Sean Brown, too, as we saw in overtime, they can get down the field and, have all the space in the world. Um, it's just one of those where we actually have to utilize those players other than just, hey, go run 40 yards down the field and let me sling it.
Yeah. And, I'm not saying that we don't need to throw deep balls because that's how you break games open, but it shouldn't be the meat of your offense if you haven't been very successful doing it. Right? We're not 2013. You're not the early 2010s Baylor. With Art Briles when they're throwing all those deep shots, but they're hitting them because they've got track stars at receiver who run in the 4 threes, and you can't keep up with them. Like we're not that kind of team right now. We're a zone read, play action type team. Um,
Yeah.
and I think we got a little bit out of that element in the first half. I mean, we were still trying to run the football, but I think our passing game was a little too drop back oriented. Whereas now, look at the second half. There's a lot more play action, a lot more short stuff. Really just try to get Logan easy completions, open completions. And you
Yeah.
saw,
Because the small stuff, the easy stuff, like we said, it builds up and then you get the big plays.
yeah, absolutely. And you even saw, the big completion to Michael that kind of broke the offense open in the second half was off play action. And for that matter, it was off of a pulling guard, so it was dressed like a run play. Um, and it's really hard as a safety to maintain in zone when you're watching the QB and you see the pulling guard and play action. It's hard to maintain integrity and not come down to try and work the run. And that's exactly what happened. Safety's bit. Michael runs a post over the top, and Logan threw an absolute dot. Um, and I think if it, going into a game against MTSU where I'm pulling up their defensive stats now, I don't think they've been that great defensively. Let me see here. Yeah, so looking at their defense, they're giving up around 400 yards a game. 250 of it's through the air. I mean, they're allowing over 2 touchdowns passing on the season, almost 2 touchdowns rushing. Like it's they're not a great defensive team. I think this is a game where we've got to really put the pedal to the metal in terms of all right, this is what we're good at. This is what just scored us, 28 points in essentially 35 minutes of play. I think this is the week where we kind of really put a stamp on our identity as a team this year.
Yeah, one hundred
So
percent. This is very much our make or break stretch. Not like we've necessarily had a cakewalk leading up to this point, but this is like the meat and potatoes of our season right here coming up. Um, so at this point, it seems like some others is the starting quarterback, and with the way injuries and whatnot have shaken out, Malik Jackson is RB1. So we really just got to lock in and have a game plan tailored to where, at least coming out of in the first half, it needs to be kind of simple, just kind of dink and dunk to get those chunk yards. That way, we're not, especially with how fast we're running our offense, we're not going three and out 30 seconds, and then the defense is on the field, and then we come back out and we're only on the field for another 30 to 45 seconds, and then we're right back on the field, and then our defense is right back on the field. So yeah, coming up on this stretch, we definitely just have to get those easy plays. Um, that way, our offense can kind of build the confidence and build the momentum, and then as everything kind of comes together and we're moving the defense around the way we want, then you open up the big shots. Um, but yeah, definitely a lot of good things that we saw in the second half, both from the defense and the offense. Um, and I think it just kind of carried into overtime. Us having to come out, score first, I mean, like you said, that throw was a fairly simple throw. Um, and Sean Brown took it in, and we got the extra point. And then the defense just really locked down and got off the field in 4 plays in overtime.
yeah, um, you know, I I give credit to I really want to give credit to the receivers. Um, we haven't really seen a lot of explosiveness in the passing game, and I don't want to pin all of it on the quarterbacks. Um, Logan really. I mean, he made some great throws even in the first half that just weren't caught. Um, and I think that was a big thing is we've needed some guys who are going to step up and be explosive. And we finally saw, Sterling downfield. We saw Michael Petway downfield. We saw Perry Carter downfield. Um, we just it really felt. I even saw again Sean Brown, like you said, in overtime downfield. Like it felt like we finally found a way to balance. You know, find a way to get the intermediate game going and not being a screen and deep ball type team like we have been under previous coaching staffs where it's been all right. We're going to throw wide receiver screens and we're going to throw deep shots and that's really it.
Yeah. Which can get very annoying when you're sitting at 3rd and 9 and then you see a screen. We lived that life for way too long, and our fans are tired of it, and I think we're finally past it. Obviously, you're still going to see screens because they just work, and especially depending on how the defense has been moving around and what coverage they're in, sometimes the screen is just the best option statistically, but we're not seeing a drive where 2 out of every 3 plays is a screen anymore, and that is very refreshing.
Yeah. Um, Obviously, I want to see it. I want to see us not have such a slow start. This next week when we go on the road. But it was encouraging with the adjustments we made that hey, this week, you have a little bit longer turnover, right? You don't go from Saturday Thursday. You're going from Thursday Wednesday. So you're getting those 2 extra days to kind of get ready. Um, I really would if we can come out firing first half this next week. I really like our chances. Um, and then leading into Liberty and Western Kentucky, I think that if you could even and I don't want to like say that a loss is whatever, but even if we lose, but you could tell that it wasn't because we played poorly. That at least gives you a little confidence going into those 2 home games. where you certainly would hope with it being a weekend and no one really having anything else to do that they'll show up and be a little belligerent for a few hours.
Oh yeah, 100%. Um, but yeah, I mean overall, not a great performance from start to finish, but a great adjustment, and that's what you love to see. That even though we were down and kind of just looking hopeless, we were able to pick ourselves up, hit a complete 180, and come out with the win. Um, People will say, well, they were 0-3 or 0-4, whatever their record is, but they sure as hell weren't playing like it. And so I think, regardless of record, the way we were able to turn it around and come back and win says a lot about us um, as a team. And I think going forward, if we ever do find ourselves down two or maybe even three scores, I'm not going to be so quick to count us out.
No, no, neither would I. Um, Now, and before we move on, I do want to touch. This isn't the first time we've seen us go down by a few scores and win. I mean, the Eastern Washington game a few years ago, I think we were down what like 28-7 to start the game,
Yeah.
and came all the way back to win in the final minute. So it now obviously that was a different coaching staff, but like we're not. This isn't new to us. Like we've seen it happen several times before. It's just a matter of seeing it with this team on the road. I think that's where the difference is.
Yeah, seeing it on the road, seeing it for a night game, midweek game, just totally new environment. I think that was really huge for us to just be able to gain a sense of composure and come away with the win. So definitely a lot of great things to take away from that game, and a lot of great things to look forward to. Um, and hopefully we can just keep progressing and see USA and really just let everybody know, we're not to be messed around with. We're here for a good little bit.
Hmm. No doubt. I think we're definitely proving we're here to stay.
Oh yeah. So before we get into the preview of this week's game, a couple of other sports shout outs. Our women's soccer team got their first conference win over UTEP. They went into El Paso, came away with a 1-0 shutout, um, which is huge. I think that puts our conference record at 1-1-2, um, and our overall record at 6-5-2. Um, so not a bad start at all. I know their next game is against conference leader New Mexico State, um, and I believe that's a home game. Um, so yeah, definitely good to get that first conference win under your belt. Hopefully, they can build some momentum off of it and keep it going.
Absolutely. You know, we're all about the other, not just football and basketball. At the podcast, we're all about the other sports, and seeing their success is a big part of what makes us proud to be JSU alumni because we truly try to be in everything school, and for the most part, we are. I mean, we've got a lot of competitive squads that are not football and basketball. Um,
Oh yeah,
so yeah, shout out to the soccer team. Um, getting a win over UTEP seems to be a trend with our squads this year, getting a win over UTEP. Um, so yeah, shout out to soccer. Huge win. Hope to see you guys continue to have some success this year.
yeah, same. I'm always rooting for all of our teams, no matter what, to come up with a win. Um, Cross country, we actually came away with a huge win. Um, Apologize if I pronounced the name wrong. Bethlehem Menzano Jimeno won. She actually won the individual cross country title at the Live and Lou Classic in Louisville, um, and she finished 30 seconds ahead of second place. Which, for those of you out there that aren't necessarily familiar with cross country or track or anything, 30 seconds is a very huge gap. Um, so yeah, she didn't just win. I dare I say she dominated that race. Um, so definitely a huge shout out to her. Um, that's a lot of running to do, a lot of nonstop running to do.
Yeah, I could never run cross country. That's for sure. Um, I mean, I can't run that far anyway, but definitely cannot run the kind of length that these people are running. So, huge credit. And I'm assuming, if the race was in Louisville, that means there's probably some pretty hefty squads there.
Oh yeah, probably. I ran cross country and long distance in high school, and I wasn't super great then. I definitely could not do it now at the college level. I would get embarrassed, whether it be running against men or women. Definitely a huge accomplishment, a huge feat. And I wish her and the rest of the team a lot of success going forward. Hopefully, we can come away with some more individual titles, or hey, maybe even a team title. Coming up here soon. We're definitely going to keep our eyes on them.
Yeah, absolutely. First news you've really heard, with cross country this year. So it's a new sport we'll be able to report on.
Oh yeah. Um, Speaking of new sport, I know we don't necessarily have it in our notes, but I saw that bowling was seventh in, I don't know what standing it was, but they were seventh in preseason standing. I don't think it was for conference. I think it was just for whatever league they're in. So that's huge. It's seeming like we got a pretty solid team there. Can't wait to see what scores they put up. Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be higher than my like 120 average.
Yeah. Now I'm not as familiar with collegiate bowling as I probably am other sports.
Well, we haven't
But
had a bowling team until now, so we really
yeah, we didn't have a
didn't
reason
need
to.
to.
That's true. We didn't really have a reason to pay attention to it. But here's the thing: bowling is it's kind of like cornhole, or fishing. Like it's one of those things that a regular person can enjoy. Right? You don't have to be 6'8", 240 to be good
Yeah,
at. But that's not a knock on the people who are bowlers or fishers, um, or playing cornhole. Like that's not a knock on y'all. Like, but it's a much easier sport to relate to because it's things that we've done. Um, so yeah, like hopefully our bowling team turns out pretty good. We've got some lanes in the Jacksonville area, so I'm sure some of these local kids have been playing a lot in their junior high and high school lives. So hey, hopefully we have a good year.
yeah, I hope so. Definitely will be something to keep track of, with it being so fresh and so new. Um, Hopefully, we can get a lot of our fans, involved in it, and cheering on these girls as the season progresses. The one sport I do know we will have a lot of fans for is basketball. We
Yep.
are 1 month away from some game action, albeit an exhibition. Um, we are 1 month away from game action at the Pete. November 1st, both, I believe, November 1st, both the women and the men um, have exhibition games. The women, let me pull it real quick. The women play Montevallo at 11:30 a.m. on November 1st, and the men, if my phone will stop being slow, here we go. The men play, I think it's Talladega College. I'm trying to pull it up to make sure. Um, Here it is. Yeah, the men play Talladega College on November 1st at 6 p.m. Um, that's a lot of time in between the two games. Usually we have double headers when they both play in the Pete. But women at 11:30 that morning, women, or men at 6 p.m. that afternoon. Um, so yeah, we are very close to Gamecock basketball, and I know you love being in the Pete. I know all of our fans that go to basketball games in the Pete love being there. It's just a great atmosphere all around.
Yeah, the Pete is an underrated atmosphere in college basketball. I mean, I remember um, in John Morant's last year at Murray State, and we played them. And I'll be honest, we kind of ran them off the floor, and their coach came up afterwards and was like yelling at us about just how good of an atmosphere we were. Now he was yelling because he couldn't really hear himself think because we were still getting after it. But we've gotten recognitions from other coaches about just how good of an atmosphere we put on. Um, so hopefully it keeps up this year. You know, new conference. I think that first time Liberty comes to town, it's going to be a party.
Oh yeah. Between hardcore, which is the best pet man in the land, and the Cockflock, the unofficial student section, as far as where they deem the student section is supposed to be, um, that little area right there behind the basket can get rowdy. Um, that being said, I think the university should move the student section in general to being all around hardcore, because we could really make the opposing team's lives hell. Because I mean, we get really great student turnout at basketball games. So if we were to move everybody over there to that section, all around hardcore, a that would be hard to not pay attention to as an opposing coach or an opposing player.
Yeah. I mean, I can say after 5 years of being in hardcore, and then last year being my first year in the student section, like for real. Because I'll be honest, I don't think I went to hardly any basketball games my freshman year. Um, I think I went to one. Big mistake, but last year, like it gets loud on that end of the court. Um, now I don't know whether it was intentional or not that they put us right next to the opposing bench. But we have gotten some guys kicked off the team for trying to punch us. So maybe that keeps
Well,
up this year.
one of them was not an attempt. One of them he fully landed a
Yeah,
punch.
yeah.
Uh,
One of them was a punch. That is true.
yeah, one of them he fully landed it. Um, but no, we definitely get under their skin a little bit. Some opposing players play into it and make it a great game, and then we get to laugh with them after. Uh, some of them, though, you can tell it gets under their skin and they get really annoyed. Um, so I'm ready for that atmosphere. Hopefully, we can bring it back and make it even better this next year. Because I'm definitely ready to travel to Jacksonville and catch a couple of games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I'll be there for at least a few weekend games um, this next spring. So look out for me and Jalen to be leading some belligerency um, at the Pete.
You know it. You know it. Well, with that being said, I think we can head on to a quick little preview of next week. Um,
I think
the
so.
game, the Jacksonville football Gamecocks are traveling up to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, to play Middle Tennessee State University.
Yeah, so MTSU, they're 1-4. Um, when you look at the games they played at Alabama, at Missouri, home Murray State, home Colorado State, and then at Western Kentucky. And, those first two games went about the way you thought they would, yet run off the field by Alabama. I'll give them credit; they held their own at Missouri, who's 5-0. They beat Murray State, but then they lose to Colorado State, um, who is not a bad team, though you would have loved to see them play a lot better. And then Western Kentucky, no surprise, Western Kentucky beats them by a few scores. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we all know what Western Kentucky's about. They know how to put some points up. Um, um, looking at the numbers, they're not a great. They don't have a great secondary. Um, and I think the progress we saw in the second half from Logan Smothers and the receivers, I think that has to be encouraging. Um, we're not a spread triple option, run it 60, 70 times a game type team. We still want to throw the ball.
Yeah,
And so I think, seeing the progress that we made there in the second half in the passing game and knowing what MTSU's about defensively, where they're more looking to stop the run, I think we can find some opportunities early to throw the ball and force them, to not stack the box. So that's
yeah.
just me.
The biggest thing I worry about is doing what we did against Sam Houston and kind of reading into the record, because I think the record can be a little bit deceiving,
Yeah, absolutely.
based on who they have played so far. Um, their 1-4 is a little bit different because, like you said, they played Bama, they played Mizzou, they played Colorado State, and then last week they had Western Kentucky. I definitely think we should be able to walk in after watching how they played against Western Kentucky. We should be able to walk in and handle business. Um, I just don't want us as a team, which I knowing the coaching staff, I doubt it will happen. I don't want them to read into the record and the stats too much because then we'll come out flat like we did against Sam Houston. Um, they're definitely not a team to look past. We have to respect, you know, who they are and what they are. Because if not, we will end up right back in the same situation we were last week, and we do not want to get in the habit of that whatsoever.
No, and you brought up a good point. And I think I mentioned it. Like, not only is the schedule deceiving, but a lot of I will say their passing numbers aren't just not having a great secondary, and I don't know that their secondary is elite, but they've been trying to stop the run, right? And that
Yeah,
because that's still how you win football games is to run the ball and stop the run. Um, um, Now, I'm not saying their secondary is elite and that we need to change our game plan in terms of how we throw the ball, but I do think that if they continue to look towards stopping the run more, I think we should lean into it a little bit, right? Try to throw the ball around, force them not to stack the box, and then see what happens from there.
yeah, 100%. Um, honestly, top to bottom, if I think we play like we did the second half, um, and judging how they played against Western Kentucky, I think if we play like we did the second half for the whole game, we should be able to come out of there with a fairly easy win. Um, looking at all the predictions right now, ESPN has us as a 56% favorite. Um, the money line in Vegas, oh, it keeps moving. Earlier today, I looked and it was MTSU 3.5. Now it's down to MTSU 3 point favorite. So basically, for all intents and purposes, everybody is calling this game a toss up with the over under at 51.5. Um, so yeah, I think those lines and those numbers are about right. I would honestly have us as a favorite, but only having them as a 3 point favorite, and we still got a couple of days before game time. I see that line moving much closer to a toss up, but I think we can go in, handle business, come away with a lot of momentum going into Liberty Week.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think this game, Sam Houston, is a little bit different because we've played them before, so we're familiar with each other as opponents. I don't know that we've ever played MTSU, and if we have, I certainly don't remember it.
It hasn't
Um,
been in it hasn't been in the recent past, at least. Yeah, no, this is a which we'll have a lot of these experiences as we go forward. Being FBS, especially with out of conference games. Um, very much a new opponent. We don't know the history of their play style. We don't really know the environment of their stadium. How their crowds are, um, and especially with it being a midweek night game, this is a huge chance for us to kind of show them what we're made of because they've seen it from the outside looking in. this is our first chance to give their fans and their team an up close view of this is Jack State. Don't mess with us. Don't take us lightly. We're here for a long time.
Yeah. Normally I say we're not here for a long time. We're here for a fun time, but this is a week to prove we are actually here for a long time as well. Um,
Oh yeah.
it. I would love to go on the road and get a dub. I would more like to go on the road and play the way we did the second half against Sam Houston. Um, that's really what I want to see. Even if MTSU hangs with us in a shootout, I want to see the offense move the way they did because the defense, more often than not, is going to get their own. It's when the offense is moving that we turn into a really really good football team.
Yeah. Yeah. Once the offense gets rolling, especially because of the tempo, um, once the offense gets rolling, and we can put points up every drive, every other drive, that's when overall as a team, the confidence is really high, and you can see it. Those guys start to they start to get really confident, and they start playing really hard. Um, and then it just bounces back and forth. And when you have a coach like Rich Rod, and you get that confidence, that energy, that momentum, that you get all of that at high levels, that sideline becomes electric. I mean, we've seen it firsthand. We've seen it on TV. This team, if they can get everything rolling the way they need, it's a scary team.
Yeah, really is for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
What?
well, I'm just hoping we can go in and come away with a win and be one step closer to waiting on that phone call that they don't have enough bowl teams.
Yeah, yeah, man. I'll tell you what, and I know we've said it before. When we get the call, as long as it's reasonable driving distance, I'll be there.
Oh yeah. The only thing is, I hate that we're going to be last priority, so we'll end up getting some. We'll end up getting like the Idaho Potato Bowl or something. And I'm not going to Idaho.
No, if I'm going to go to Idaho, I've got to be getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
No offense, people who live in Idaho, but there ain't much up there.
Potatoes.
There are potatoes, good potatoes. Get yourself some mashed potatoes.
I don't really have anything else to talk about. Do you?
No, I don't. I think it's just a matter of let's get to Wednesday night. It's only 2 nights away when we're recording. It'll be one night when we post this tomorrow, or maybe if I can get it out later today. Um, but I mean, it's weird. We're only 2 nights away, from Gamecock football, and we still haven't even played Monday Night Football when we're recording. Um,
Yeah, yeah. No, last Thursday it was weird sitting there because I honestly forgot that we even like I knew we had a game, but I kind of forgot until I was like, wait, it's Thursday and we got a football game, y'all. We're here. Midweek action is here. We officially have football 7 days a week in some form or fashion for the next like month and a half.
yeah, hey, it's the most wonderful time of the year.
You know it.
Who needs Christmas when you've got football? But no, I'm excited. It's gonna be, hopefully we come home, night after work and get the dub against MTSU, and that's the way it'll roll. So, all right, you got anything else?
No, I think that's it.